Guys, have you ever struggled with jeans that hug your quads a little bit too snug? Or clothes that just don't fit your body right? Well, I've been there, and that's why I'm stoked to tell you about Barbell Apparel's Black Friday sale. Get any athletic fit jeans, chinos, or pants for just $99. Or get yourself the upgraded Athletic Fit 2.0 jeans for just $119. I've been rocking their gear for years now, and the comfort and fit is unmatched, especially for those of us who don't skip leg day. Barbell Apparel is built to power whatever your workouts, your work days, or your travel plans have in store. But there's a quick heads up. Barbell has sold out 8 years straight, so do not wait to go get in on these deals. Get yours before they're gone. Go to barbellapparel.com to level up your wardrobe game, get yourself some new gear, or just click on the link below. Leon and Gary. And this is an interesting one because these two can't agree on what happened. I cannot explain how little anybody would possibly care. I mean, it's kind of the unexpected headline leading into the year's final pay-per-view, where they both have fights. One of them in the main event, the other one on the main card. It's a very interesting thing. You have two guys, one that's very hard to get an audience with. He just doesn't do very many interviews. And whether that's a rejection of the interview request or the interview clicks don't do well enough that the writers just don't call, I wouldn't have the answer to that. But when you have very few interviews and then you do one, and it has to do with a gym spat, I find it interesting. I don't find it wrong, by the way. You think I'm coming in here saying he should be talking about Colby and he should be selling the date? I don't necessarily care what you tie it to if that brings people in. That's called marketing. You can do a whole piece on this gym spat and then mention December 16th at the very bottom. It's done every day. It's wise. I'm sharing with you that it's a surprise. It's a surprise how petty tough guys can be. And it's one of those things that just never goes away. And when I was trying to come up, I was getting dismissed. And the dreams that I had for myself, the vision that I had for myself, and I think all fighters would represent that, but of course it's the marquee, right? It's the main event. It's the feature match. It's the most questions at the press conference. It's walking out last. These are the things that you would dream of. So the guys that I needed to go after to attach myself to that would look down their nose at me and go, hey, who's this guy? I don't even know what a Chael is. And more importantly, the world doesn't know what a Chael is, so I don't need to respond to him. And when I share that that was my story, that's everybody's story. There are guys right now that could get me to respond. Did it a week ago to George Masvidal. But if his name was George something else, I can't imagine I'd made a piece. So I think that you would understand that concept. And when I was having a hard time getting attached, it was so important to be a leech in those moments. It was so important to attach myself to that upper echelon crowd. One thing that I was able to observe and figure out before other people of my time is how much perception was reality. And it was very important to really, really get your head around that. We had a time in the sport where the top 10 ranked guys, exactly like now, were the most popular guys. If I was to ask any of you that swear up and down you're fight fans, who the 10 greatest boxers of all time were, you probably, with given a little time, could produce 10 names that boxed, but for sure, it would be synonymous with the 10 most popular. There's not even a little bit of a curiosity or a maybe there. A lot of times it goes hand in hand. But not always, and not in a lot of sports. I'm old enough to remember of the biggest stars in football. He was just one of the most terrible football players that I personally saw in the National League. His name was Brian Bosworth, and I don't say that to insult Bosworth. He just wasn't very good on that level. He was ahead of the curve in college, and he stuck the needle in his ass, and he had all these things, and he got this cool haircut. But at some point, when you're in the NFL, where all the other guys have your same secret, and they all have that same needle into the same ass, that doesn't give you an edge. And I'm not here to begrudge that. I'm sharing with you. He is one of the biggest stars to this day of my lifetime in football. Signed one of the biggest contracts in football. Sold some of the most merchandising. He had posters, and he was putting out this badass hairdo, and he was doing interviews, and it was one of these things. He was very, very popular. I don't follow soccer. But I'm told by my late great neighbor, Eric Benson, who's a wonderful player and a coach himself, that David Beckham, when he came here to America, was wildly handsome, and he married a famous girl and had a ton of cameras on him. But at that point in his career, he was not a top guy, and that he, in fact, was never the top guy. Again, I don't say that to insult David Beckham. I disclose that I don't know the game very well. But there are times where somebody will come in and they will take all the attention and all the money as the most popular, but not be hand in hand with being the best. A great example that you can debate, not a hill I would like to die on, but an example that I would like to give, if I was to ask you who the best boxer of the last 20 years is, you would come back with an answer of Floyd Mayweather. And in fact, if you came back with any answer other than Floyd Mayweather, you would lose credibility. But I'm not sure that you're right. You might be, but I'm not sure that you're right. There's one other name, and it absolutely never gets brought up. It wouldn't come in number 2, number 3, or number 4, but he might have been number 1. His name's Andre Ward. Floyd Mayweather will be recognized as the greatest boxer of the last 20 years. But it might have been Andre Ward. Andre Ward might be the best boxer alive right now. And he hasn't competed in boxing since, I don't know when. Wonderful stories. At 14 years old, he never lost a match. You guys know that? From 14 years old to today, he never lost a match. All the amateurs, world championships, Olympic games, any way that you want to do is really good. End up in some kind of a contract dispute, some kind of a back and forth, however that happened. And when you bluff and you play that game right, he was just young and he was naive. Well, that's what happened to Andre Ward. Like, I've heard Andre tell the story of his contract problems. I even heard it last night. He is a friend of the sport of MMA. I had the pleasure of meeting him one time. He's this handsome. He's this very nice guy. He goes and worked with the Diaz boys. But I did hear him as recently as last night breaking down what ended his professional career. And it was a contract dispute. And up until last night, he still doesn't know what the problem is. He thinks he does. He attempted to explain it. He will go to the grave whole in his heart because he feels that he identified what happened. But as I listened to him explain it, he does not understand why he didn't get that contract. If he ever wants to call me directly, I will happily share that with you, Andre. But one thing about it, when you understand about perception and you understand that you've got to attach yourself to certain names as a way of elevating and rising while they're going to constantly brush you off, it's a very tactical, it's a very interesting game. And when I was struggling to get that done and to get those reactions, and I could beat those guys, make no mistake, they thought they could beat me. I don't even know who he is. You'll have fighters that fall for the rankings themselves. I'm ranked number 1, and this guy's not even in the ranking. They don't look into the fact that of the fat tub of guts that did the ranking system, or what his protocol or what his criteria is. Like, they'll fall for it themselves. I'd have whipped their asses. I just need them to say my name. I couldn't get them to do it. You want to know what I did? You want to know it worked every single time? It works 100% of the time. I lied about them. When I told the truth, they would ignore it. They look down their nose. And the truth was, I will whip your ass. The truth was, you go out with a wrestling heavy game. I had a full ride Division I scholarship. I never saw you in a bracket. The truth was, you're ahead of the curve on performance enhancing drugs. I'm on that same curve. This was the truth, and it didn't work. It didn't get me anywhere. The truth is, you're friends with the promoter who I've yet to meet yet. The truth is, you're a pain in the ass that only fights a couple times a year. I'll fight a couple of times a night. Truth didn't get me anywhere. But so I came out from, I will whip your ass. I come out from that to a different interview. I trained with this guy and I whipped his ass when I had never met him. And 100% of the time, the guy that didn't want to say my name, the guy that didn't want to give me the opportunity, because he knew it was true, he knew I'd come in and knock his ass right off that ledge. Exactly what I did when I finally got my due, but I'm just sharing with you. I couldn't get attached with him. I can't get attached with him. I can't get an interview with you. How am I going to get a bout agreement? If I can't get you to say my name in an interview, how am I going to get a promoter to pay us money and book us on a card? And I bring it to you because Leon and Ian have a very different side of why they got kicked out of the gym. This story is the dog crap on the bottom of the MMA world's shoe. It could not matter less. They're not real teammates. The story here is, why is Ian Garry, who represents Sanford MMA, who's fighting his own teammate, Vincente Luque, why is he not training at Sanford MMA? That's the real story. Did they kick him out? Or did he leave on his own? Either way, that's the story. If he left on his own for any reason, he's not loyal to the gym and they shouldn't let him back in. If they asked him to leave, this will be the second gym that he was kicked out of, and I don't have the foggiest idea where he's training at right now. I spoke to Michael Bisping for an hour and 20 minutes yesterday, and I asked him this question. His whole gym's in England. Michael knows what's up with everybody. I just said, where's he training now? Talking about Ian Garry. Said, I don't know. I'm just sharing with you. That's interesting. That's the actual story. Why Ian, who didn't have a loyalty to his own gym, which means he didn't have one to Leon's gym, which means likely he's one of those guys that isn't paying his way. I'm not looking to give Ian a hard time. I'm sharing with you how insignificant this story is, but it's different. They have different stories, which means one of them thinks the other one lied, and that will prompt a response 100% of the time. Leon has business on top of the bill of which he is paid a percentage. Do you understand how significant that is? Do you understand? Every fighter who has ever dreamed of I'm going to go fight and then I'm going to retire and that's going to be it for me. But the very few, a couple of handfuls, you might need a toe on one foot, that have ever actually done it, where they actually made enough, had one thing in common: they got pay-per-view points. No one else has ever retired from a financial standpoint. That is the deli creme. That is the sweet spot. And you can't control it. You can't negotiate for it. It's not even something you're owed. It is a gift from the UFC. If you trace it back to when it started, it was a gift. One day, Dana gave it. And he didn't know who he was going to give it to. So he gave it to his champions that were defending. It just started somewhere. That's where it started. He passed it on to the next guy. Guys would win the championship and not know, like guys would keep their mouth shut. They didn't know this was a thing. Dana would keep them. Supposed to fly home on Sunday. He'd keep them till Monday. Want to see you in the office at noon. Uh-oh. This isn't good. Go in the office. They didn't tear their contract up. Uh-oh. I'm in big trouble. So no, you're getting a brand new one. You're rich. Congratulations. But we defer back as soon as you lose the belt. He would explain the deal to him. He would just explain it. But I'm sharing it. It was the ultimate generosity. Leon is now in that spot. He's only been in that spot one time. He did not get the participation I speak of the night the head kick was heard around the world, knocked out Kamaru Usman, possibly his greatest performance ever. He didn't get it. It doesn't work that way. As a matter of fact, Kamaru got it. Kamaru came in second, but he brought the belt. He's the one that left with the bag. It's just the way that contract works. When they did the trilogy in England, that was a different story. And it was very interesting at that time for me, because Kamaru did not participate in the promotion of that match. I interpreted that to he was buckled down and he was focused. That's how I interpreted it. I don't actually know. He never said anything about the match. Leon never talked about the match. I, as the biggest and most influential voice in this space, came to you guys 2 weeks before the match and said, this doesn't feel like they're going to have the fight. I had no inside knowledge of anything, of a weight discrepancy or of an injury or an illness. It just didn't feel like it. And sure enough, I wasn't the only one that felt it. There was a reason Colby Covington was booked put on weight, paid, and flown out there. It didn't feel like they were going to fight. It's relevant because this is Leon's chance. And he might have 5 more. He might have 2 more. It's one of those things, and this could be his very last one. And it's one of those spots where you'd want to bring in everything that you can. You are absolutely incentivized. The UFC is a unique situation. It is not charity. You are not given money. Guys so often misunderstand what they made versus what they were given. And they're not wrong either way, and it's not something you want to educate them because they're dumb fighters that are going to go blow it on booze and strippers anyway. Like, it really doesn't matter how many millions you gave them or how many millions you didn't. It's going to be gone in a year anyway. So it's not a conversation that I'm really looking to have, but in the UFC, you will get what you earn. And it is endless. It is endless. It does not cap. When you were brought in on the participation for every pay-per-view that sells, and that never ends. If that's 1 million, 5 million, 1 billion, 1 trillion, 1 gazillion, or some other number that you want to make up, it never ends. But you're going to have to earn it. And there are guys that embrace the meat, and I don't give Leon a hard time for not. Leon done a wonderful job with his career, and he's the champion of the world. I give all the money back to have the championship of the world. I don't question him. I'm pointing out a small observation. That you have Leon in a highly unique position where not only highly unique guy, oh my God, this is a 1 in a million. I was the only guy in the UFC in the history of the UFC at one point to have 2 fights at once. I had Rashad Evans signed and I had Wanderlei Silva signed. And regardless of how badly I was going to whip Rashad, I was still going to fight Wanderlei either way because we're doing the Ultimate Fighter. It was done. You're not going to run that back. You might switch a fight out. You ain't switching an entire season of a broadcast. Right? It was one of these things. Nobody had ever had it, but it was a unique spot. And they came to their top draw to do it because I could manage that in the media. And believe me, I would have a plan for when I whip Rashad's ass, or if lightning struck and Rashad got the jump on me, I will have a plan for both. Make the next one work. Leon is now in that position, or at least close to. Not only does he have Colby for points, if he succeeds, he goes right into Muhammad for points. But instead of managing the situation, or instead, one interview he did, he said he's going up to 185 pounds. Opponent be damned, it was about winning that belt, as though anybody cares. Went as far as to say there's nobody interested in his weight class. And then he came out with another story that is the dog crap on the world at the bottom of the MMA shoe. And it was interesting. It was about Ian Garry, who happens to be on the same card. Now, I can't tell you that Ian is better on the stick than Muhammad. He's not. But he's right there with him. And I'm sharing with you when you have 2 guys on the same card that have a personal beef that is real, that are going to do interviews 25 minutes apart. There's very few things in marketing that are more powerful than that opportunity. And if they both go into business for themselves and do those interviews 25 minutes apart and leave Blahal in the front row, no matter how much Broussard and company want to throw to him and have Rogan and company say, there's your next guy, nothing is done until it's done. And it's the surprise twist. And now you have the surprise backstory. And the whole thing is not predicated on somebody leaving the gym or somebody training together. Ian trained with Luque. Ian then left that gym. That's not a headline anywhere. Now the same thing happens with Liam. What's the difference? Why is this a headline? Because one of them lied.